Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from the Lavoie lecture, spoken to the delegates of the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, June 1966. I think the different thing about the social revolution that has taken place in our country is that it has maintained the element of hope, and at the same time, it has added the dimension of love. Many people would disagree with me and say that love hasn't been there. I think we have to stop and talk about what we mean in this context, because I would be the first to say that it is nonsense to urge oppressed people to love their violent oppressors in an affectionate sense. And I'm certainly not talking about that when I talk about love standing at the center of our struggle. I think it is necessary to see the meaning of love in higher terms. The Greek language has 3 words for love. One is the eros, another is the word phileo, and another is the word agape. I'm thinking not of eros, or of friendship as expressed in phileo, but of agape, which is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men, and overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. When one rises to love on this level, he loves the person who does the evil deed while hating the deed. I believe that in our best moments in this struggle, we have tried to adhere to this. In some strange way, we have been able to stand up in the face of our most violent opponents and say, in substance, we will match your capacity to inflict suffering with our capacity to endure suffering. We will meet your physical force with our soul force. Do to us what you will, and we will still love you. We cannot in all good conscience obey your unjust laws, because non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. Throw us in jail, and we will still love you. Threaten our children, bomb our homes, send your hooded perpetrators of violence into our communities at the midnight hours and drag us out on some wayward road and beat us and leave us half dead. And as difficult as it is, we will still love you. Send your propaganda agents around the nation and make it appear we are not fit, morally, culturally, or otherwise, for integration, and we will still love you. But be assured that we will wear you down, and one day we will win our freedom. We will not only win freedom for ourselves, we will so appeal to your heart and your conscience that we will win you in the process, and our victory will be a double victory. This is our message in the nonviolent movement when we are true to it. I think it is a powerful method, and I still believe in it. I know that it will lead us into that new day. Not a day when we will seek to rise from a position of disadvantage to one of advantage, thereby subverting justice. Not a day when we will substitute one tyranny for another. We know that a doctrine of black supremacy is as evil as a doctrine of white supremacy. We know that God is not interested merely in the freedom of black men and brown men and yellow men, but God is interested in the freedom of the whole human race. He is interested in the creation of a society where all men will live together as brothers, and every man will respect the dignity and worth of the human personality. With the nonviolent method guiding us on, we can go on into a brighter day when justice will come.
As many of you know, I was the minister in Dorchester for One of the first people I met when I arrived there was Clementina Cherry. Tina, as everyone knew her. She is the founder and executive director of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, an organization devoted to helping those who have lost family members to gun violence. That organization also creates curricula to help children, teens, and adults find more appropriate and peaceful ways of dealing with anger, frustration, and disagreement. You see, Tina's teenage son, Louis D. Brown, whom the agency is named after, was killed by a bullet meant for someone else one December evening while he was on his way to a Christmas party for a Teens Against Gun Violence group that he was involved with. His family was devastated by his death. Yet Tina felt the voice of God calling her to create something good and worthwhile out of the ashes of their grief. Hush. Hush. Somebody's calling my name. We sang these words a short while ago. There is a voice inside each of us that calls us into more authentic ways of being. Call it God, call it spirit, call it human conscience. Call it whatever you like, but it happens to each and every one of us. It's a call that asks us to step out of our complacency. It's a call that yearns toward justice. Most of the time, we ignore that call because listening to it and acting upon it can change our lives, sometimes in deep and profound ways. Many times we can't clear the rest of the noise that's going on in our heads to even listen for that call. Tina's calling has challenged her at every step of her journey since her son's murder. She meets regularly with the mother of the young man who was convicted of killing her son and started a support group for mothers of victims and perpetrators to share their grief with each other, because the families of both victims and perpetrators are deeply affected by gangs and by gun violence. Tina has even met in prison with that young man who was convicted of killing her son and supported his parole hearing. Tina has been richly blessed by her journey and is one of the most spiritually gifted people that I have ever known. Hush. Hush. Somebody's calling my name. In the early part of the 20th century, a philosopher and theologian named Josiah Royce first coined the term the beloved community. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., though, who used that term often and gave it a much deeper meaning. Dr. King's beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share the wealth of the earth. It is a community where violence, racism, poverty, hunger, and homelessness, where all of the ills that currently exist in our society will no longer be tolerated. In the beloved community, hatred, and prejudice of all kinds will be replaced with a willingness to transcend whatever are our differences and work together in a spirit of cooperation and compassion. The foundation of the beloved community is love, not the emotional, filial, or erotic kind of love that we most often think of, but agape, a spiritual love, one that honors the dignity and respect of the other, while continuing to stand up for one's principles and ideals. It is a love that will carry on no matter what happens. Now, I know that Dr. King's words in our reading might be hard for us to understand. He speaks about withstanding all manner of violence with love. It might seem weak, it might seem sappy and unrealistic. It sounds like one might be giving in to aggression. But Dr. King is clear. Agape, the kind of spiritual yet deeply human love that he refers to, is not any of those, but is the most powerful expression of our faithfulness to whatever it is that calls us, that asks us each in our own way to create the beloved community, the world that we dream of. He writes, "It is a love in which the individual seeks not his or her own good, but the good of the neighbor. Agape does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people or any qualities people possess. It begins by loving others for their sakes. It is understanding, creative, and redemptive goodwill toward all." It's a kind of love that stands up to violence and oppression by lifting up a mirror so that all can see brutality and cruelty. It's a kind of love that over time will wear down even the greatest hostility with its powerful presence as it gives the world a new vision of peace, understanding, compassion, and cooperation. And I would venture to say that the people you and I admire the most are those who have listened to that inner voice and taken that call seriously. Those who have used their gifts and talents in service to others. Those whose lives have been an example of creative and redemptive love. There are many homeless people in Berkeley, California, where I studied to be a minister. The mild climate attracts many people who are on the edge of getting by, perhaps struggling with some of life's challenges. Sister Rosemary, one of my professors in seminary, was a Catholic nun. As such, she had taken a vow of poverty, lived a simple life, and turned over most of her salary to her religious community. But she always had a roll of quarters in her pocket. And any time she passed someone looking for a handout, she'd give that person a quarter. She knew some of them would be using the money to buy alcohol or drugs, but that didn't deter her. They were all God's children and deserve dignity and respect. And dignity and respect might bring some positive change. She didn't feel it was her place to judge. She lives a life of simplicity, yet she always has something to give. Yesterday morning, many people gathered at Zion Evangelical Lutheran Church to pack toiletry bags for people who are homeless and in need, and to make snack packs for some of the children in local schools who don't have enough to eat. Nearly $10,000 was donated from individuals and places of worship in this community to fund this effort that was sponsored by the Plymouth Area Interfaith Clergy Association. In early December, many from this congregation participated in the holiday party for the people who have lived at Renewal House, the domestic violence shelter that is run by the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry in Boston. That and the summer picnic you throw are a response to that call that you have heard. Hush. Hush. Somebody's calling my name. We all know stories of people who give something of themselves to a stranger or friend. People who don't pass by someone in need. Maybe the stories are about you and me, and the extra little bit we do for someone else. We might do it out of our convictions and ideals or out of our religious principles. We might do it as a spiritual practice, a discipline that keeps us from being too self-focused. Whatever our reasons, we have taken the time to listen to that inner voice. We have quieted the inner noise and the busyness of our lives just enough to hear that voice. And we soon realize that we are doing it for ourselves as much as we do it for someone else. That the benefit we derive from that engagement and that encounter offers us incredible blessings that carry us through our own times of struggle. I believe that everything we do can be judged by whether or not it leads us to redemption and reconciliation. And I think I will define redemption as saving our souls, the saving of our lives, really. We get lost and confused and self-absorbed all the time. We put too much energy into things that compromise our very humanity. Redemption stands for the insight, the shifts that change us, the good deeds and new ways of being that transforms us from people buried in our own self-interest to beings who risk some of our comfort in the name of strengthening the communities in which we live, building a beloved community. Reconciliation can only happen when we can face another as an equal, let go of our preconceived ideas, approach that other with humility, gratitude for who they are, and then embrace that person for all of their differentness. For Sister Rosemary and for Tina Cherry and for us, it takes a conscious effort to build a beloved community. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, but we do have to listen deeply. Step outside of ourselves and let God's grace or our conscience, the voice within, guide us. We are faced right now with times of great uncertainty. There is a rise in reported hate crimes in the last few months. Basic human rights for some in our beloved community may be compromised or threatened. Now more than ever, it is important to listen and to act. and to keep within our hearts the hope that Dr. King spoke of. If the children of Birmingham can do it, so can we. Hush. Hush. Somebody's calling your name. Listen. Notice how you are being called this morning. Amen. And blessed be. We are going to close this morning with the great hymn of the Civil Rights Movement, We Shall Overcome, number 169. Please rise.